Welcome to the Vibe Bitches podcast. Today we are discussing the finale of season 1, Survivor Borneo. And with us today is a very special guest, runner-up Kelly Wiglesworth. Kelly's not only a OG Survivor castaway, but also a professional Class 5 river guide. We've got some connections there. Humanitarian, TV host, producer, writer, and a mom working hard to make the world a kinder place. And I love that. As a member of the very first alliance on Survivor, Kelly played a fascinating game. And 23 years later, we're still talking about it today. And welcome, Kelly. Thank you
so much. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. We were just reflecting. So CG, my daughter, when this came out, I was breastfeeding. She's 23. She's the same age you were when you were on the show. Yeah. And this is one of her favorite shows. I got to say, I'm kind of late to the party now. I remember when it came out, but you know, as a mom, how old is your son now?
He's 9.
9. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I was literally in the middle of breastfeeding, and I remember the hoopla around the show and everything, but I didn't ever watch it in detail, or I did watch some of it. And I think it's just so fun to go back and watch this in the purest form. The show, it was never played again the same. But before we get into too much of Survivor, I just wanted to catch up with you, because I'm sure my first thought was, as we were doing this, I thought, I wonder if she ever gets tired of talking about Survivor. Not in a bad way, but just like, there's so many other things that you do in your life currently in the last 23 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, no, and yes. I mean, I don't get tired of talking about it, but it's not something I talk about every day. Like, I don't walk around like, hey, by the way, I have, I was on Survivor. I have lots of leather bound books, and, I'm kind of a big deal kind of thing. So I only talk about it when people ask me. And when people ask me, I've never had anybody be rude or, a jerk about it. So people who ask are fans, and they want to know, and they're interested, and I'm happy to talk about it. So, ask away any questions you want to know. I'm more than happy to talk about it. But at the same time, it is really funny. Like, it's been 23 years, Yeah.
I'm the same age as Survivor.
So. Yeah. And so I was actually 22 when I did it. And then I turned 23 the summer before the finale. And, like you said, it was the first one. It was super new. It was wild. It was weird. It had never been done before. And it's never been the same since, and I always wondered, I'm like, how is that still? It just seems like a one-shot thing. Like, you can't ever, like, everybody knows, the curtain's been pulled, you see who Oz is, and it's done. So it just always kind of amazes me that they're still able to, to keep it going. And obviously you were a bit busy as a mom during that time to pay too much attention. But yeah, I'm like, wow, people still talk about it. People are still into it. And I think there was a big sort of resurge of that first one during and post COVID. I got a lot of people reaching out to me, and I think in their own way, people could kind of relate a little bit, going through their own sort of COVID experience, being isolated, or maybe being stuck with people they didn't want to be stuck with, kind of thing. I did notice a big, sort of jump in like that season 1, after COVID. So everyone's like on their own little island.
That's such a great correlation that, we went through such an unprecedented time, but the show itself was unprecedented. And I mean, one of the things that I think is interesting, why there's a huge generation of people who caught on to Survivor maybe in season 10 and didn't watch the beginning. In fact, one of the connections here is one of my best friends, my publicist, Cheryl, is a huge fan, but she's also Dave, your manager's best friend. And I've known Dave, your manager, for years. Take us to the Hollywood Bowl. I thought it was such a small world. It's such a small world. So I'm grateful to Dave Ruddy for
Dave. Shout out to Dave. Well, yeah, he was like, how do you know her? Like, how did she get in touch? I was like, she just reached out. And he was like, well, how come I didn't know? I'm like, well, now you do. But right. So that was really funny. Yeah.
So in fact, I was talking to Cheryl, and she was saying how much oh my God, I'm obsessed with the show. And she said, but I've never seen season 1. And I was like, you've got to go back, because if you are into the show now, and honestly, I think that's one of the things, because I did watch the show, but I don't know that I got to see every episode. But when I would watch the other ones, it didn't feel as pure. And I thought it was really fascinating to see how just joyous everyone was to start this thing. And some people came in with obviously you were part of this original thing. And I thought it was so interesting that some people thought this is going to be about who can survive the elements and the best man wins. Sonia said that, I think, at the reunion. And you guys were already, you knew it was a game, or did you know it? Or was it just Rich that came in like
well,
that?
It was kind of just Rich. I mean, I sort of had that same, are you okay? I was like, that was a painful face. Okay.
Hold on. CJ got into it.
I fell.
Oh my!
And this is me right now.
What happened to you?
I was on a run and I tripped and fell.
And broke your arm.
The most just stupid way to hurt myself.
Gosh,
so the only reason it hurt is because I have this right now.
I'm so sorry. Oh, poor thing. That's not good.
This only happened on Sunday, so I'm so great. You're here, honey.
Yeah,
I love
it.
I'm okay.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad you're okay.
She's in Chicago.
Well, yeah, I kind of had that same naive, because we didn't know, we had no information. We really just had, Borneo, 16 people, 39 days, $1 million survive. And I think it wasn't in the contract. It was like, the game wasn't really explained to us. We didn't know the rules. We weren't told okay, this, and this, and this is going to happen. I think it was only when we got there that they said, okay, every 3 days you're going to do this and someone has to go. So I thought it's just going to be so hard and so challenging that it'll just be sort of obvious who's going to need to go, or maybe people are going to tap out or get injured and that type of thing. So for me, at first, it wasn't this whole premeditated alliance thing. I was just kind of taking it day by day just to see how it was going to unfold and how I was going to unfold, basically. And Rich was really, the mastermind of the whole alliance thing, because then it became obvious, well, yeah, if you want to get any further, we got to kind of plan something.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, to do the research that I've done, that he claims that he actually, before he even got to the island, was preparing. And I think that's what everyone does now, right?
Oh, sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, I mean, and I'm sure he was, he's that type of person, but from, Borneo season 1 to when I went back to Cambodia season 30, which, by the way, I was still breastfeeding my son up until I got on the plane to go. And that was really fun to go through that process while being in the Cambodian jungle. But we got there and it was I'm standing on the beach, holding bamboo, okay, let's make a shelter. And everyone's off in the woods, whispering, already making their alliance. And we're not even an hour into it. And so that was kind of a bummer. I was like, well, aren't we gonna, and people are already talking about throwing challenges and this and that. And I'm like, well, we're supposed to be a team at first. I mean, that was really, and maybe Richard had another agenda that I just didn't hear about until later on. But at first, I mean, we really were all right, let's be a team and do what we need to do first as a team. And then let's kind of worry about what happens after, because the mentality was, be a team, win your challenges. If you don't win, then let's go to a plan B. And day one of Cambodia, they were already all right, we're going to throw this so we can get this person out, and me and you and this and that. And I was, it was fast. And you couldn't even, I mean, Borneo, I was I'm going to go walk off for hours and look for coconuts. And second time around, it's you better not leave the group, or your 17 other positions are going to happen and you're out, cause you're not part of that, what's happening there. So
it's almost like it turned into Big Brother on the island.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Perfect.
Yep. Whenever people ask what Big Brother is, I always say imagine Survivor, but in a house, because that's exactly, after the first 2 or 3 seasons of Survivor, it's exactly what it turned into. It's a massive switch to, no, we're playing a game, we're cutthroat, we're going to be different people for a few weeks and then go back to normal life.
I remember making almost a conscious choice because it was so brand new and none of us in 2000, and it was so groundbreaking and nobody expected to be this juggernaut that it was. 51 million viewers for this finale. And I mean, I've been on a show that was quite popular at 8 million, and it took the whole industry by storm and changed television as we know it. And I remember as soon as watching checking into some of the other seasons and going, I'm missing out on the interaction with people. It seemed to be so much more about the competitions. And I felt like I liked that interaction that you guys had.
Yeah. Well, we had no idea, season 1, we had no idea it was ever going to make the air. We didn't, that was in our contract. It was, they said, okay, we're doing this. We'll be there for 39 days. We're filming it, but all 13 episodes have to air. Otherwise nobody gets anything, because everybody gets something depending on, like, if you're first voted off, it's, $1,000 or whatever, so everybody gets something depending on how far you make it. And that, I actually still have the contract. It says, all 13 episodes must air, or, thanks for playing, good times, like nobody gets anything. So yes, I mean, we knew they were making a TV show, obviously, but that really wasn't, because that was no guarantee. And there was no social media. There was none of that. So at least for me going into it, like the whole, like, oh, it's going to be on TV, like that. So like, that didn't matter because that might not happen. And if it doesn't make it on TV, nobody wins any money. So that really wasn't like a huge motivation, because that might not happen either. I just wanted to know if I could do it. I just wanted to see if I could do this thing. And that was really, the motivation for me, because I had been a river guide. I had, doing all these things, but I always, had the water filter and the sleeping bag. And then once you're there, the cameras are around, but day 2, you're like, forget about it. They're the least, because you're really, camp was, yes, you go and do the challenges, but it was the day to day. Like you would have to do math of, okay, if we have to go to a challenge later and I need to expend, X amount of calories to do that. If I spend X amount of calories trying to go fish or look for coconuts or whatever, am I going to have enough energy to do this later?
Is that the most challenging thing for you personally? Or I mean, for everybody, but you personally, was it being a guide, obviously, you're outside, the outdoors, the exposure, but is the hunger, I mean, it was real. It was intense.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. It was absolutely real. That, like you said, I mean, the elements and that the actual like survival part, that wasn't so hard for me. And I studied a lot. I was reading books about tribes of Borneo and how they lived and how they made their shelters and what they ate. And, the Borneo jungle is like everything, everywhere I read, it was like, quote unquote, the Borneo jungle is the most inhospitable jungle in the world, with like the most everything that'll kill you, plants, snakes, insects. Don't touch this plant because it'll leach a fluid that'll make you blind, and everything. So that part was obviously challenging, but I was prepared for that. But it was the psychological warfare, I guess you could say, that was really challenging. And again, that was unfolding as we went. Now new contestants, like, okay, this is going to happen. Here's your blueprint, go. We didn't know. And again, I was like, is anybody going to, like, who's going to watch this? Who would watch this? Is anybody really going to watch this? I mean, this could be really boring. This could be, really exciting. But yeah, I think that was sort of the hardest. And you had talked about, putting Big Brother out in the jungle. And people ask me, and I'm like, imagine like the worst high school clique you could think of, like the standout from every like annoying group. And then you're stuck together in the woods. And it's kind of like that.
Well, so because it was brand new, and obviously it was a time of no social media and anything like that, how did you hear about Survivor? How did you decide you wanted to go on it? And what was the audition process like for it?
You'll like this. My mom made me do it. So kind of going back to river guiding, I had actually dropped out of school to go on the Grand Canyon for 21 days. I'd been working my summers as a river guide on the Kern River, and a friend of mine had got a private permit, and during this time, it was like an 11-year waiting list to go privately on the Grand Canyon, 21 days. And, I was like once in a lifetime experience, that'll never happen. So, and it was in October, and I couldn't miss, that much of school. So I was like, school's already, school's going to be there. So dropped out of school to go on the Grand Canyon, and my mom was not happy about that. And I was 3 days out of the Grand Canyon, and I had, obviously quit school, given up my apartment, given up my job. And so I was sleeping on the couch on my mom's house. And she was like, what are you doing? Like, get a job, go back to school. Like, what's your plan? What's your plan? And I'm still, my skin's still cracked and bleeding, and I'm still catching up on my sleep. And she came home and shoved this piece of paper in my face, and it had a little cartoon drawing, and it was like, the one palm tree with the little piece of dirt and this guy laying underneath it. And it said, CBS, 16 people, Borneo, $1 million, 39 days survive. And that's all it said. And she was like, you should do this. Like, you pretty much just did this. Cause I was 21 days in the Grand Canyon with 15 people that I didn't know that well. I knew, we all worked for different companies, and we had all kind of seen each other on the river, but it was, she was like, you just did this, like, go, you should do this. And I said, yeah, I should do that. And so I just started auditioning, and, kind of one thing led to the other. But the audition process was really funny because you had to film a video and, fill out a bunch of stuff. And I didn't have a camera. Like, we didn't, there wasn't like phones with cameras. That wasn't like a big thing. And so my dad borrowed a camera from somebody. It was like a camera, like a beta, like a big ass camera that I happened to be visiting family in North Carolina, where I am now. And my sister was filming, and she didn't know how to work the camera. And I didn't know what to do, because they're like, be creative and show us your personality. And I'm like, what do you do that's like shows your true self, but you're not like being campy or cheesy or, acting? And so we spent a day, and I had done all these things. And then afterwards I was like, oh, that's awful. That sucks. Like, erase that. And I do something else. Oh no, that's terrible. Erase, sucks. And then I got to a point where I was like, forget it. Like, I'm just not going to do it. I can't think of anything cool to do. And she said, no, just do something. Cause it had to be in the FedEx thing by, midnight of that day. And so it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like sitting on the couch, just over it, drinking a beer, like petting my dog. And she was like, okay, your name, who are you? Where are you from? Like, just give me the information they want. And so I was like, fine, whatever. And I was just like, pick me or don't, like, I don't really care at this point. And so I put it in the FedEx thing, just had already decided like my audition sucks. This isn't happening. And got in my car, drove back to California, and I get to California 4 days later, and my mom's calling me, freaking out because I had no cell phone. So mom was, base camp. She was contact phone number. And she's like, CBS has been calling for 2 days. They're freaking out. They really want to talk to you. And I'm like, for what? So I call, and this, I spoke to this woman in casting, and she's like, is that really you? Like, that was the most amazing audition. And I'm like, what? Like, you guys must be really, there must be some really uninteresting people out there. So, she kind of goes on and on about, how wonderful my audition was. And I'm just like, okay, I guess. And it wasn't until the finale where Mark Burnett, and I think they might have even showed a clip of it at the finale, but so Mark Burnett starts talking about my audition tape and how fantastic it is. And I'm like, what is the big deal? And so apparently all these things that I had filmed that my sister supposedly erased, she didn't know how to work the camera. It never got erased. So, and I couldn't even tell you what I was doing. Like, I have no idea what it was at this point. So apparently all this random stuff that I thought was stupid was like, Mark was like, it'd be like a couple of seconds of this, and then it would go dark, and then a couple of seconds of that, and that would go dark. And he said, apparently it was just the best thing ever. And so I just
everything you thought was being deleted.
Yeah. So in my, so I'm just kind of like, I kind of just like Forrest Gumped it like onto Survivor, because I had no idea what I was doing or what,
That's an amazing story because it just, we're actors, and we're always putting it's so hard to judge ourselves, and especially putting yourself on tape, and it's like, that's such a great story. It's like sometimes it doesn't matter if you think it's bad. Just just send it. Just do it. Take action.
Yeah, exactly. She was like, just do it. Like, what do you have to lose? Just, put something out there. And, so I did. And then, the other thing that he told me was, the written application, one of the questions, because again, at this point there was no point of reference. So one of the questions they asked was, if you could be a character on Gilligan's Island. So I'm going to ask you too, if you, could be a character on Gilligan's Island, who would you be and why?
I've never seen
well, that's the thing now. Like do you know the show?
Yes, I know of it. And I know the premise.
Know of it. Okay.
But I don't know any of the characters.
Okay.
I would think that, obviously, well, sometimes like the movie star, but Marianne was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
But Gilligan was you can be, whoever you want, but
you can be whoever so if professor, you could be anybody, who would you be?
A CG, I think, would be
like a type of person who you see
like
on Survivor.
An actual if you
an actual character,
an actual character on Gilligan's Island. We had to pick a character on Gilligan's Island. So there's Gilligan, who was the goofy guy. There was the skipper. There was the couple, the Mr. and Mrs. Howell,
the millionaires.
They were the millionaire couple. There was Ginger, the movie star.
And Marianne, who's like from the dairy farm. Right?
She was like the little country girl. And then, the professor.
And the professor.
I think CG,
CG keeps, this is her favorite. This and Big Brother are her favorite shows. And she talks about doing Survivor. I'm like, honey, you could do Big Brother because you need showers. You can't.
Yeah, I said, I think I would win Big Brother, but I would be awful on Survivor because this was something I wanted to ask you about. You said hunger was really bad, but exposure, like I can't imagine not being able to get sleep from the rain and just being
no sleep.
I would turn into cranky, rude, and I think I'd be booted off Survivor because they'd be like, "You're rude and annoying. Get off." So I'd probably be the movie star from the movie star.
Okay, and Melinda, who did you say you would be?
Oh God, that's so funny because I mean, people think because somebody would say because you're an actor, but I'm not the movie star. I think I'm more. I don't know. Maybe I'd be more like Skipper or something, or the professor.
Okay. Well, okay. There you go. Good. So I said the professor.
Okay.
And apparently I was the only female who picked a male character. Which, I guess I was like, well, it didn't say you had to pick, if you're a female, you have to pick a female.
Same sex, right?
So I was just like, well, if I was stuck on an island, I would be the professor because I would be like, and that's the whole funny thing about the show is like, really all these years and they're making huts and they have, all these things and they didn't like build a boat and get off the island, of course. Cause, so I was like, I would be the professor, but yes, so the food thing, like, yes, it was really hard not having food, but I think, because if I go a couple of hours, just today in life, I'll get hungry and cranky and, hangry and all the things. But for some reason that didn't happen there. And I think maybe just psychologically, there's no food, like it's just not an option. Here I'm like, oh, I'm hungry and I can go into the fridge and eat 50 things if I wanted to. Whereas there, you can't, there's no food. So I think your brain just like shuts off and is like, all right, we just have to close that down because it's not even worth your time. So, that just, I was never like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. Like, yes, I'm hungry, but I just thought of other things and you're on you're living on adrenaline. So that kind of shuts down the hunger. But, how you were saying, oh yeah, people, I'm going to go and do this and I'm going to do whatever I need to do and do whatever it takes to get through. And I'll be whoever I need to be for that to happen. And then I can come home and go back to being me. And I always kind of was like, I kind of call BS on that. I said, you can't go and be a completely different person, cause I've never watched it. P.S. I've never seen anything that I was on or any of the other ones, but I've met people and I obviously know, what's happening. And I've always heard people be like, oh, I'm this really sweet, wonderful person. That's just me in the game. But in real life, I'm really awesome. And I'm like, no, I disagree because you take away the showers and the food and the comfort and the sleep and your familiar people, like, who are you? Are you a nice person still? Are you just a heinous nightmare? Because I think when you're stripped to nothing, that's who you really are. Who you really are
Right.
is not the person with all the comforts. And are you a nice person? Are you a good person? Like how you play the game. And, that's sort of how it was, because I didn't have this big grand alliance thing, that was Richard's thing. And then obviously I went along with it at a certain point. But the night we voted Gretchen out sucked. Like that hurt I still cry, about that, because that's not my character. That was me doing whatever I needed to do to get further in the game. And it felt like shit. And it was awful. And she is a sweetheart. I've like, cried to her and apologized. And she's like, no hard feelings, honey, do what you got to do. She's like, I would have done the same. And I was like, well, I wouldn't have. And that was the turning point for me where I was like, if I get voted out tomorrow, fine, but I don't want to go any further playing this way because it sucks. And if I go any further and, even if I win, I want to win because I know it's because of me and not because, I hid behind Richard or whatever,
Right.
So
I think you can, watching it back, you can definitely see your turning point there, because people were like, oh, Kelly's wishy-washy. I'm like, no, she's coming to terms with like how she wants to move forward. I never saw it as wishy-washy. I was like, she's realizing what this game is about and deciding, how she wants to move forward. And, you said voting Gretchen off was hard. Do you have any other large regrets from the first season, or change anything?
Yeah, I guess, in hindsight, like if I knew I was going to lose anyway, I would have much rather given the money to Rudy. I would have gladly taken Rudy to the final two and like, here you go. Like, I would have much rather gone to the end with him versus Richard. Even that whole day to the end, Richard was like, all right, second place is cool. Like he knew he was already resigned to the fact that he was not going to win against me. And that was the plan. Like if you're going to go to the end, you want to sit next to somebody who you feel like you've played a better game, you're a better person, that type of thing. And he even, and I don't know if this actually made it to camera, but when they announced the winner, he turned to me and he goes, I'm sorry. Richard mouthed the words, I'm sorry, to me. And I just, it was like, what?
Like you bring up the ethical versus cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, I haven't seen all the other seasons, but I seriously doubt that there was ever as much, because it was almost like it was the majority were trying to, I think, play ethical, and it was more the minority and then of course at the end everybody was having to play the game, because in the beginning, I don't think you ever will get that in any, or ever got that on.
You don't. I've seen many of the other seasons. It is, ethics are out the windows.
Oh yeah, and it's okay.
Every other season, and it's accepted. It's
right,
just
exactly
accepted that way.
Yeah. It's like, this is what we're going to do, and nobody can get mad and no hard feelings. And like, that's how you play. So yeah, I agree. I think, from obviously my experience and from what I know of past seasons, and even just my second experience in Cambodia, it's like, oh yeah, this is how we're playing. This is what we're going into doing. And nobody can get pissed off about it or get bummed, because that's like how you have to, if you want to get any further. And, I think it was Keith, and, rest his soul, he recently passed, Keith Nail. That man he was fantastic. He was just the biggest sweetheart. And I really enjoyed, being there with him. And we would sit and talk, and like, if we could just do the challenge part and like do the survival part, like that's kind of fun. But the whole like politics and all that, we were like, that's the bummer part. 'Cause he was just such a nice person.
I was very sad to hear about his passing, for sure.
Yeah, he was a good dude, really good dude.
He's from season 30, Mom.
Okay, I don't know
Yes.
yet.
Yeah, that's season one.
I wanted to
Yeah.
say you were talking about the Grand Canyon, and so I had the opportunity to do the Grand Canyon, the same exact thing. My husband, you guys are the same age. You probably know the same people, and in fact, we wanted to. I'll bring him on to say hello at the end here, but
Okay.
he did the same thing. They had a private trip. They waited like 7 years for this permit, and they got to do 25 days. And I actually hiked in because I was like, I can't do 25 days. I just, and my first day there was my third day camping ever.
Oh my gosh.
But the great thing
That's
about river
amazing.
guiding is you can take 2,000 pounds of something on a boat, and you have great food, and it's planned out on dry ice. However, by the end, we were literally making soup from bouillon. And so there was some definite, so there is some survival and all that, and there's so much equipment and everything, and they take care of you. But somebody at the end of it, or many people have asked me, like, how was that, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's the Grand Canyon? And I said, on any given day, any number could apply, and every number did apply during that whole trip, because there were days where, it's raining and you're at these, or you're going over lava falls, and you have, you feel like you're going to die. I mean, there's so many things. And I think the river is such a euphemism for life. And I think it's magnified in a situation like Survivor, where on any given day, you probably, or any given moment, you could say, man, look at that sunset. This is amazing. You could have some kind of dopamine rush from doing a certain reward. And then other moments where you're in these terrible storms and you're not sleeping. And so I would imagine that equates. And so that river guiding experience in the Grand Canyon was such a good example for that. So I just wanted to,
yeah,
right.
Definitely.
That's like that.
So, but yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. And that, I didn't quite answer your question about exposure earlier, but, yeah, I like that on the scale. That's really cool, because you do, and that can happen like at the same time. But yeah, so like one night, for example, I think it was day 9, it started raining, and then it pretty much didn't stop. Like for the next 30 days. I mean, we'd had moments there was raining more than not, and a hurricane was hitting the island, and we were actually at tribal council, and there was lightning and thunder, and stuff was going on, and they like had to shut it down, and we had to get off the grid. And so we just ran into the jungle, and we had to walk. Like, we didn't get boated or trucked or anything. We had to actually walk from our camp through the jungle to the other side of the island to get to tribal council every time. And we had to make it back through the jungle. And, we had no light. We had, just the stupid yellow plastic rain jacket, and, walking back, I mean, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And poor Rudy, I mean, he just fell all the time. And so it was like, we were just trying to keep Rudy from slipping and falling and breaking his neck. And, we're all just like packed in, and, we've like, just making it back to camp was like, holy shit, and then getting into camp that night, the wind was blowing so hard, like it was ripping palm fronds off the shelter. And I remember at one point, Sue and I were like holding on to one of the poles in the shelter, because the wind was blowing so hard. And and people think, oh, it's the tropics. Like, even if it rains, it's warm. No, it's cold. It's cold. And when and there's nowhere to go. And sometimes when it would rain, you'd go into the ocean because it was warmer, but there was so much lightning that obviously we couldn't go into the water, and you can't go into the jungle because it's super dangerous. And so I just remember hanging onto this tree, and it wouldn't stop. And, like watching the sun come up and still being soaked in rain. And like, I was just remember thinking, like, this is it. Like, this is the most miserable a human, like, at least in my human experience, like, this is it. Like, this is the bottom of it. And, that's why I like, oh, I get the water torture thing. Cause, you think about, you're like, oh, it's just a drop of water. And it's like,
yeah, but when it's nonstop.
And so it was interesting that you mentioned that, because I was like, yeah, that, like, you go to the other side. That was like a 10 plus. And then you're like, can I really endure this? And then you're like, why the hell am I here? Like, I signed up for this. I don't have to be here. Everyone's mean. Everyone sucks. I'm like as cold as I've ever been. I'm soaked to the bone. And then, and you're just like, why am I doing this? And then something just kind of switches and you're like, okay, all right, I lived through that. I can live through something else. I can keep going. And so, what started off as one thing. And like, as you said, and maybe I did appear wishy-washy and whatever, but for me internally, it was like figuring out how to proceed and how to get to the next 10, or how to live through the 1, how to get to the 2, how do we get to the 3?
There was a moment where, because obviously you guys are there with the crew who almost become extended, family, because they're there with you experiencing all the elements as well, I think, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to do some tutorials. They pull you aside and it doesn't sound like you guys were redoing or reshooting or getting extra shots or anything, right?
We were the first time we did, like, we would have to, and this, what was, obviously kind of messed with your psyche was, I remember the ropes course one in particular, because we're all at the starting line and they're like, okay, all right, go. And we would run and they'd be like, all right, stop, go back. We have to shoot it again. Cause there wasn't drones. There was like the giant Westcam helicopters. They're like, all right, go back, do it again. And you're like, oh, okay, go back. We do that 4 times, start the ropes course again 4 times. So that definitely messes with you. And then, so there was some of that, but not a lot, but there was some.
Okay.
And, one time there was a thing where we had to hold our breath. We were like sitting on this little pier and we had to jump in the water and hold our breath. And it was getting dark and there was a storm coming, and we hadn't stoked our fire a lot before we left camp, and we didn't have matches. We didn't have flint and steel that first time around. We made fire and we had to keep it going the whole time. And so we had to decide, when should we put the pot of rice on? Like, are they going to call us to go to a game? Because we had no idea. We would just kind of have to wait for something to happen. And so that night in particular, we had waited all day and nobody went to go off and do anything because we knew we had a challenge. And then finally we thought, all right, well, maybe it's not happening today. So he went to put the pot of rice on. And then of course they show up and they're like, all right, you're going to a game. And we were like, crap. And we didn't have time to stoke the fire. So we were out there floating on this little pier. It's getting dark. We're cold. And they made us go in and out of the water a couple of times to get the shot. And finally, actually it was Jeff who was like, no, like I can't, because he had to be the one to do all the things. And he was like, no, I'm not making them get in the water again. And he actually like stood up to production and was like, these people are freezing, like get them back to camp. I can't make them do it again.
Wow.
That's good.
I had when I was on a show that I was doing, I'm not allowed to talk about because of the strike, in 2003, one of our ADs had just come from being on production on the show. And he had an ethical moral dilemma. He said it was too difficult to see what they were going through.
Oh, wow.
The contestants were going through. He said he's like, here we are just eating lobster and such. And he thought, for him personally, he didn't like it. He didn't like what the contestants were being put through. And he said, so I came back to Hollywood.
Oh, well, good for him. Yeah. I mean,
but for him, it was difficult because going back to what you were saying, it wasn't so much that you were you put yourself into a situation with no preconceived ideas. And then as it comes down to it, you see the way people are acting and you put your head in your hands. And you're like, I can go along with this, but I'm having real human emotions and conflictions and the voice in my head. I just felt it, like you could see and nobody else seemed to be doing that. Huh. There were just watching for the first time. Sue and Rich and Rudy's just going along with it.
Yeah,
they were like, "Here, this is what we're doing," and you had a real you were questioning everything in your
You
humanity.
could see the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
a
a battle royale for sure. And that, and that's the thing is like, you have the one side where it's like, oh, it's just a game and it's, it's not real life. And then the other side, it's like, well, crap, if this doesn't mimic real life, I don't know what is. Like, what are you willing to do to get ahead in life?
Yeah.
It's
like
real life
in a box.
stripped
Like,
down
yeah,
to its
that
most
is real
raw
life.
way,
Yeah.
like raw
And
method. Yeah.
I feel
Absolutely.
like the contestants now, they have it easy because it's expected of them. Although
right, you get a free pass to be however you need to be, right? Like we were
Right.
saying earlier, like it's
I think-
expected and it's fine.
And I just think there's something, one of the things we do on this podcast is actually explore the impact of shows and the cultural impact and such. In reality, today, we know that people love the idea of being on TV. Maybe they love it for the fame or the money but we've also seen for some people that it's highly unhealthy for their emotional health. And, especially when you get to like the housewives and things like that, like exposing yourself and it can be very exploitive and such. So coming back from the show, how did your life change in so many ways, like a lot of attention, or were you able to balance it and just kind of keep to your core as
a little bit of both? So
Yeah.
that's a really interesting question that not too many people ask. And that was a really big part of it because, again, like you said, now going into it, whether that's people's motivation or not, like, that what to expect. And, like I said, I mean, we didn't even know it was ever going to air. So the amount of just popularity and I guess fame, so to speak, that came after was a huge shock to all of us. And it was, I tell the story. I'm like, okay, one week I was cleaning out porta potties on the river because that's what we had to do at our camps. And the next week I was walking the red carpet at the Emmys wearing like Jenna Elfman's rejected dress that she didn't want that happened to fit me. And like somebody's loaning me $100,000 diamond earrings. Like, what the hell? I mean, I'm not kidding you. From Saturday to Saturday, that's how much my life changed. But coming home, we, of course, we weren't allowed to tell anybody. And I think that first one, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the first one was the only one where we knew who won.
It is. Yes.
I think after that, they were like,
after
oh, no,
that,
we can't.
they wait to read the votes until wherever they record the reunion. But
yes. So not only did we, not only did I know I knew I lost, but I knew the whole Sue speech and the whole everything. But, so I had to come home and like keep that secret. And it was just weird, like mentally, physically, I was just in such a weird place. And I was, staying at my mom's house in Las Vegas at the time. And that just coming back to civilization anyway was weird as hell. But coming to Las Vegas after being in the Borneo jungle for 39 days was way too much. I couldn't even deal with myself. I didn't know what was happening in my brain, certainly in my body. I had lost 24 pounds. I was very ill. Turns out I had serious like parasites and amoebas. I had like a serious health problem that I didn't find out till later. So I spent 3 days in Las Vegas and I was just like, I got to get the hell out of here. And I went to the river. I went back to the Kern River. I went to work. I worked all summer and everybody knew me there. It's a very small town. All my friends knew me. So it wasn't a big deal. And I had told my manager at the company, I said, I need to be on an overnight every Wednesday night. So every Wednesday night I was on a 2-day trip. So I was camping. I was in camp. I wasn't in town. I wasn't near any people with a TV. And, people would come and, they would kind of recognize me, but people were pretty cool. And I had a really great group of guide friends that were very protective of me, that, if other guests would come on a trip, they would be like, hey, she's on the river. She's just a guide. Like if you happen to be in her boat, great, you're in her boat. Like no one's getting, and just let her be. kind of thing. So people really did kind of rally and let me be. But there was a few times where people had brought little TVs into camp on Wednesday nights because they had to watch Survivor. And it was even funnier when I would be on the trip and they didn't know it was me. Cause you're in hat and sunglasses and life jacket and you can kind of hide out a little bit. So there was one point where this woman had brought her TV and cause she had to watch Survivor and she did not know the whole time that she was on the trip with me.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
That was awesome.
It was probably very helpful, going from such a wild environment and then being able to have a bit of a support system when you get back. I'm sure that made the transition. I mean, not that it was easy, but it aided in it a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah. I had to get back to nature. I had to get back to what was familiar and where, because nothing seems real. Nothing feels real. And I mean, even being there was odd, but yeah, you have to process a lot of stuff mentally and emotionally. And then also as it gets closer to the finale, having living through it the first time was hard, especially, the speech at the end, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but just that building up that anxiety of oh my gosh, I'm going to have to live through that again. And what's everybody going to think? And, as it's progressing, people, and even my friends on the river, they're like, she's still here. So she must not have gotten voted out. They were starting to kind of calculate I haven't been whisked away to somewhere for a week. So she's still here. So maybe she's still in it kind of thing.
So, okay, so you just mentioned one of the more, if you type in, Survivor Borneo, that speech from Sue comes up. And so I'd seen it. And I mean, I didn't see the speech. I was just okay, I know it's coming up. So I watched it just the other night for the first time and thinking about this epic, famous speech. And I was a little bit jaw dropped. That sounds so, see what comes out of people's mouths is about themselves. It's not about the person receiving it. And we can't control what people feel, but she was so angry and it came across as sore loser to me.
That's what Jervis said after. I think what's more iconic is how Jervis backed you up and said what we were all thinking. I think I watched it for the second time last night. And I was like, she really was just a sore loser.
Yeah, I think she was hurt. I think a lot of times anger comes out of hurt or it almost always does. And she felt the need of, that's when you think there's a lot of ego that is involved with almost everybody's actions. And I think I learned something when I was doing my getting prepared for this, that you said that one of the things, everybody asked about Greg and the picking the number between 1 and 10, but I think you said that he actually said to you, he looked and he said, I can't let this. What did he say? I'll let you say it.
Yeah, it was actually Greg and Sean, both of them. Greg and Sean both came up to me at the finale and looked me in the eye and told me that they could not vote for me to win because they could not lose to I was 22. I hadn't turned 23 yet. They said they could not lose to a 22-year-old female. That they had, because Richard, I think he was 36 or 30, whatever, some late 30s. It was easier for their ego to lose to Richard than it was to me. And I knew Greg's pick a number was bullshit. And I knew Sean's alphabet, whatever his theory, that was just their way to not take responsibility.
Justify.
Exactly. Yeah. And I knew Sue wasn't going to
choices.
Right. I knew Sue wasn't going to vote for me. And I knew Rudy wasn't going to vote for me. And that was okay. He gave his word at the beginning and that was it. So Rudy got a free pass because he was like, I don't care how much I hate Richard and how much I love you. This is what I said I was going to do. And I'm going to do it. And Rudy and I butted heads at first, but he ended up being my most favorite human ever, by the end. And yeah, they both told me they couldn't lose to me. And, with Sue, she and I were kind of buddies at the beginning, and that obviously started to fade. And when I realized that, she was totally like ratting me out. She was, in bed with Richard on everything and, really against me. And then, she and I had like a big disagreement, and because I told her, I confessed everything to her. I said, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go my own way. And she was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's stupid. Don't do that. She was like, do whatever you need to do, but just like play along. I got your back. I got your back. I'll cover for you. And cause she was like, me and you to the end, like girl power. Right. And I was like, okay, all right, let's do this. And meanwhile, she's telling Richard, oh, Kelly's out. She doesn't want to do this anymore. So from that moment, they were out to get me. And, she had done that. So I knew she did that. So when it came time for me to come to power, because I didn't win anything. I mean, it was like day 20 something before I even won anything.
And then you won 5 times in a row. And
I had to.
I was like,
I had to.
How is she not? Because I knew the outcome, and I thought she just won 5 times in a row. How does she not win? Because I didn't know all the details yet.
Yeah, but because I had to, because there was no option. If I did not win, I was gone.
They were going to vote you.
Yeah, and so in my mind, it was like, what? There's no like losing was not. There was no falling off the log. There was no letting go of the idol or whatever all those challenges were. But and so when it came time for me to make the choice for her, and, in my head, as she was like, well, I'm not going to let you get to the final 3. And that was my little immature, well, I'm not going to let you kind of thing. So I knew she was going to be mad. I knew her venom was coming. And I think that our whole last day in camp, when Richard and I were burning the place down, I was like, we chatted like, who do you think's going to say this or vote that? And like I said, the whole day he was like, yep, 100,000's great. Second place is awesome. Like he had already resigned to knowing that about himself. And then we were like, what's Sue going to say? And I said, oh, she is going to lay.
It was going to be rough.
Oh man, I called it. I was like, she is going to lay into me. And he was like, oh, both of us. I was like, she'll have some sharp words for you. But I was like, she is going to let me have it. And he was like, do you really think like, she's on TV? And I was like, do you really think she cares? Like, she's going to say something. And I will say, for a person who didn't really have that firm grasp on grammar, her speech was really, really good. Just throwing that out there, He
had a way with words.
Like eloquently spoken.
Really eloquent for a woman who wasn't so eloquent, if you catch my drift.
And when he didn't shake her hand, when she came up, she said, I'll shake your hand, but I would not. What did she say?
She wasn't going to give me water. If I was dying of thirst, she wouldn't give me water.
I was like, do you think that was a performance, or did it come out of this real, because there's nothing worse than people having expectations in life and not getting what they want because they didn't. But do you think she played for the cameras, or that was real venom?
She had real venom, but that was played for the cameras. Like,
can the producers edge you on, you think?
I don't think did they edge her on? Like, I think she had a lot of help with her speech. Let's put it that way. I mean, I know, like, she was really mad, I know she was really mad. And, but did she come up with that whole thing herself? No, of course she didn't. But to the extent that she really went for it, I didn't know it was going to, go that far. But and that was sort of a moment where I knew that the person I was when I stepped onto that island was not the same as when I stepped off. Because if you said those things to me prior to that, I would have gotten really fired up and taken everything personally. And, I mean, we might have fought, I would have gotten really passionate about it and had to really defend myself. But it was like, almost like this, like, sonic boom went over me, where I was just felt like, oh, I just elevated. Like, I literally just became a different and better person in that moment when I didn't react.
Right.
And it felt fine. Like, I just was like, you just made a huge ass of yourself. And sorry you feel that way. But there was no part of me that felt like I had to like defend myself, that I had to stick up for myself, because I knew who I was and I knew what I did, and I knew everybody else did too. And I didn't have to say anything about it. And it was a big moment for me, just in the game and in life in general. It was huge.
I was just going to ask something similar, because if somebody walked up to me and gave me a speech like that, and when I was in a vulnerable place, or I'm still just figuring out my life when I'm 22, it would be devastating. And there was a time in my life, if somebody talked to me like that, I might be curled up in a fetal position. But instead, it's like, people don't have power over us unless we allow it. And I just think that at such a young age, I'm sure the life lessons that you got from this are tenfold, or just infinity. And it was really, I was proud of you. I was so proud of you. And when I watched it, and I was like, just watching the show, I was like, I need to reach out to this person. And this is the person that I want to talk to the most, because I think you, and I wanted to make a point of the fact I was really shocked to hear this, not shocked, I guess, but it just never occurred to me that these Sean and Greg were like, it's because you're 22. And it's a different time, maybe people would do the same now, but it really, there are some things that 2000 in the year 2000, things are a little bit different now. And there was some sexism on the show, clearly. And some of the words that were being used, even in television back then, we've realized we don't say the same things. We don't make the same jokes. There's a lot of things that were said that we just don't get away with now. And I didn't even think about how far women have had to come in every aspect of the world, and that it would hurt their ego to allow somebody who actually played the game really well.
A 22-year-old female, they specifically said. And you think like, well, 2000, that's not, 1950. I mean, it's the year 2000. And that was shocking to me. And then I just said, oh, I feel really sorry for you that, and like you were talking about Jervis, love Jervis, talk to him every day. He's awesome. He's a fantastic human. And he was like, you're a sore loser. And he was like, you played a great game, and I am happy to stand behind you and support that. But which was funny, because I think, and he's
the one that made that comment.
Totally. Well, that's what I see. Jervis is a fantastic human. He's a sweet man. He's a great father. He's a great guy, but he does have this reputation, and he even had it there, and he still kind of plays to it on social media. And I always tease him. I'm like, dude, you have the biggest cover ever, because you're the sweetest, nicest guy ever. And he was like, if I can't win, I want the best person to win instead of me. And he really supported me, and other people really supported me too. And that's what was great, is I had, so much, I guess, kind of fear and anxiety reliving it. And you wonder like, well, what's everybody going to think? Are they going to think I'm this big loser? And was it all for nothing? Or, did I put myself out there in the wrong way? And I think that's partly why I didn't want to watch, because I was there. I knew what happened. And I guess I didn't want to know what TV made of it. I mean, obviously, you film so much and then you can only air so much. And I guess, like, what are they really going to show or not show? And I guess I just wanted to keep my experience pure and just kind of stay in my truth and my power of like knowing what really happened. But no one's ever come up to me and been like, well, you suck. And, that was terrible, or that kind of thing. People have always been so kind. And, what you said, like, wow, you handled that really well. And, what was even more awesome is parents, particularly women with young girls, would come up to me and still come up to me and say, thank you for being a good role model, and thank you for being a good role model for my daughters. And, I actually got asked, I was a Cosmopolitan Fun Fearless Female of the Year in like 2000 or something. And, I was in the magazine and that, I mean, I'm not an actor. I'm not a model. I'm not a rock star. So for me to like be in Cosmo and do all the things, like that was really cool, but also, just so surreal. And they flew me to New York and there was this big luncheon and I got to bring my mom and, Helen Gurley Brown was still alive and sat next to me and she was fantastic. And she just came up to me and was like, linked arms. And she was like, you're that Survivor girl and I like you and sit next to me. And I'm just like, what is happening? And the editor in chief at the time, she came up to me after the lunch and we're taking pictures and she had her daughter with her who was about 7 or 8. And this like still gets me. She asked me to take a picture with her daughter and I did. And she said, that's who I want you to be.
Wow.
Sorry, it gets me emotional. I was like, wow, so like, forget the money, forget all that. The fact that like that had an impact on somebody is worth all the speeches and rats and all that.
Well, and staying true to yourself, I think it's everyone has their own truth and what they can live with. And, you could see that you were, I think a lot of people went into it just with the purity of it. And then when it changed, you could see that they struggled with that as well. And like I said, you'll never see that again. But when you say, I'm not a rock star, I'm not this, I'm not that, but I have to give you a bit of an anecdote because I know quite a few river guides. And when I got into that world and one of they're bigger than life and it's an amazing kind of job to have. And it's like, what, people do this for a living? But I remember him saying like, what the sexiest careers are? Rock star, fireman, river guide. And so you're up there with rock star when it comes to being a river guide. So I'll equate you with that.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet. Well, I'll tell you some later, but
even more than that, you're a humanitarian and a mom.
Right.
And yeah,
I wanted to switch gears. I wanted to ask about the water project you've been working on.
Oh, thank you.
Because you say you're not a rock star, but then you told us all these things you're working on. I'm like, okay, pause. Yes, you are.
Well, thank you for asking. I really appreciate that. It's really exciting, and this is all just kind of happening. A couple of weeks ago, the Marshall Islands was just recognized by the United Nations as being only the second country in the world to meet the UN goal of sustainable clean water for all. Liberia was the first country, and now Marshall Islands. So not even the United States has reached this. So it's a big deal. And how I somehow became involved in this is my son Rio and I went there several years ago, kind of on a whim. We heard from somebody who knew somebody who heard that the Marshall Islands needed clean water. Were having trouble with access to clean water. So we got a group together, and in 5 days we bought 200 Sawyer water filters. We went to the Marshall Islands and met with different aid groups there and got them out to some of the outer atolls and just kind of hoped for the best. 200 water filters is not going to give everyone clean water, but it's something. And we met with different people there and connected. And I just was like kind of hoping for the best. And COVID happened. And so that slowed down a lot of the efforts. And just a few weeks ago, I got a message from Sawyer saying, hey, we just delivered the final filters yesterday, and we were all having dinner with a group of Marshallese people, and they told us the story of how you and your son came out of nowhere and brought these filters, and like, how did this happen, and what were you doing there? And I didn't know. Like I said, I kind of didn't really hear what was happening, and now all of a sudden Marshall Islands has clean water. And the whole time we were there, people are like, why are you here? Like, thank you for coming, but why are you here? You don't know anybody. You're not with an aid organization. Like, why did you come? And I didn't really have a good answer other than like, well, we heard you needed help and we decided to show up. So now that's happening. And now I'm, partnering with Sawyer to do more water projects. And our goal is to keep working, just keep ticking off the countries one by one and keep helping them to get clean water. So for me, that came about I lived in Mexico for about 10 years, in a very remote town with my son. And we had trouble having access to clean water often. And when he was born, we had a hurricane that hit our coastline and the bridge washed away to our village. We didn't have power. We couldn't pump water. And as you know, having an infant and even trying to breastfeed, like drinking enough water to feed your child, that was a challenge. And I was like, well, I chose this, I moved here, I chose this life, and I could choose not to have it. But most people don't have that choice, especially women. Women around the world are responsible for getting the water. And if that is your life and your daily struggle, like as a mom who barely lived through a little bit of that, I just felt like it was sort of my place and my duty to help carry that forward. So funny, like, Sue would never give me a glass of water. And that's kind of become my passion, is to make sure everybody has a glass of water.
Right. So no one's dying of thirst on those islands.
So inspirational. And so many times there are people who say, if they see something, they say, how can I help? Well, you just did something remarkable. And you're saying just a few people were able to make that much of a difference. We should all take some lessons from that.
Yeah, you just
I'm talking to myself.
Well, but that's a really good point. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that want to help and want to contribute, and they just don't know where to start. So then it gets overwhelming and daunting. And I mean, at the time when we went, I was like I said, I was really excited that it happened, but then also I felt like, oh gosh, like we couldn't help everybody. And oh, well, you do what you can. And then it took some years, but it had a ripple effect. And now this is happening. And now other countries are reaching out to Marshall Islands saying, okay, well, you did this. Like, what's your template? How can we make this doable and digestible? And, okay, start small. Okay, little bit by little bit by little bit. And that's, something, as a parent, you want to tell your kids. And I, always tell Rio, I'm like, you're never too, it's a cheesy cliche, but like, you're never too small to make a big difference. Like, you never know what that one thing you did or that one kindness you said to someone, you have no idea how that is going to ultimately affect your life or their life and ultimately the world. I mean, who knew? I never, that
you made one decision to get the filters and you started the ball rolling for
now
this
it's
great
rolling.
accomplishment that they have.
The ripple effect.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, we kind of talked about like, and there was lots and lots of wonderful people involved, but the group that brought it home to the Marshall Islands is women.
That often happens.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, yay.
On the topic of women, I know you have plans to go to India and start teaching. I believe it's whitewater guide school, because they don't have classes for women in India, if I'm correct.
No, they don't. They don't really offer much training for anybody, but we recently did a trip to India. We went 3 days trekking in the Himalayas and then 3 days rafting down the Ganges. And it was myself, another female guide friend of mine, her daughter, and my son. And yeah, we're like, where's all the girls? Like, where are all the females? And they said, oh no, we don't have any female guides. And so my first question was like, oh, is that taboo? Is it a religious thing? Is it not accepted? And they said, oh, no, it's not taboo. And it's not discouraged, but it's not necessarily encouraged. And they said, we don't offer any training, and, there's no training, and there's no support, and there's no encouragement. And so we were like, well, that sucks. We need to change that. And so every day when I would be rowing the boat, like, we would pass other companies and even other people on the side of you would think I had three heads, they were just like, a woman is guiding the raft. And so we were like, well, I think we need to change that. So we're going to go back, and we've been in touch with some other, there's quite a few female kayakers in India and Nepal. So we're starting to organize that. So we're going to go back and teach a 7-day guide school, all women led, myself and another partner. And then it's free only for women.
That's amazing.
So, and then we have a company there called Red Chilies that, they're a really great company. And they're like, yes, we will fully, like, we would love to have women guides. So I think that's obviously a big part of it too. And you've been in the guide community, and even still now it's still kind of a pretty heavily male dominated thing. So you can have all the training in the world, but if you're not put in an environment where you're going to be supported as a female in an all male environment, we don't just want to like throw them out there. Okay, go figure it out. So Red Chilies has really rallied around this effort too. So I'm really excited about that.
It's not an easy thing too. There are people that are talented. I read your essay that you sent me, and that when you realize you can read the water, and I've tried, and I'm like, nope, I know just enough about rafting that I'm but I'm not talented enough that I'm really, really intimidated by it. CG did the rogue when she was.
I've done one trip.
Oh, I love the rogue.
I was 7 years old.
Yeah. But that's what we'll have to come to the Kern.
Yeah.
Well,
yes, we should make a plan for that.
I've been on the Kern. Yes. And
we've been talking about because I haven't been since I was 7 years old. So we've been talking about years doing another trip.
She needs to do it.
We should do it. Definitely.
But going back, because I kept noticing you journaling in the show, and my first thought was like, is she writing her emotions? Is it therapeutic? Is she documenting? And you let me know that you've turned it into a book.
Yes, I did. So, well, that's funny because that when we got our care package, from the family, and there was like, so-and-so got candy and this and that and the other. And what my mom sent me was a notebook and a pen, and people were like, you got paid. Like, why didn't she send you food? And I'm like, because she's my mom and she knows me. And she knows me. So I was like the why kid. Why this, that, and that. So at like 5, my mom handed me a notebook and she was like, write it down. You have a question, write it down. And like, we had encyclopedias and we had to look stuff up. And so I just always write, even if it's stupid, stuff. And I had nothing to write on there. Richard had a journal, and I forget who else had a journal. But Dirk had his Bible. And when he left me the Bible. So I said, then I started writing in his Bible at first because I had to get stuff out of my head. So I was writing all along the edges and like trying not to actually write over the Bible because I didn't want to. And then finally I ended up just having to write over the Bible. And so I wrote in the Bible, and then I wrote in my notebook. And a lot of times I would write down food lists. So that was a game that we would play. We would go around in a circle and everybody would say a food. And we called it mental potluck. And for some weird reason, it was like not Alice in Wonderland. What's was it Peter Pan or Pan? Where it was Robin Williams he Hook. Goes back. Yes. Oh, Hook. Thank you. Sorry. Hook. And they're trying to get him to remember he's Peter Pan, and they're like, pretend to eat. And so we would do that and like pretend to eat. And so I would write down the food as it went around in the list. And then we would go back and reread like, oh yeah, the cat was a lot of cheese. I just remember like, why did we we wanted cheese. It was like meat and cheese. God, yeah, cheese. It was all cheese. But so there was a lot of food lists. There was a lot of poems in there, a lot of stories, and really just day-to-day journal entries of just me. And so that's what the book is. It's me and my life in the Borneo jungle. Like, people have seen the TV show, they know what's happening on the game, but I mean, still 23 years later, people are always asking me like, what was your deal? Like, what was really going on with you? Like, we know the challenge and Sue said this and that, but like, what was happening with you? What was going on in your mind? And what was the jungle really like? And talk about the snakes and all of that. So it's just it's a day 1 through 39 with some random food lists. And
I love it. I love it. I
That's
think
great.
that is the thing that, we watch the show, but then people are so invested that we want to get into, what were your thoughts and what was really going on? Because just looking at it, I noticed sometimes I was like the editors, because it was new for them too, because
Oh yeah.
you tell a story with editing and you could tell. I was like, okay, here they are with it. They got the villain music when Rich is up, and they've got the light music when this character's up, and you could tell it's a manipulative art where we're letting the audience know how to feel depending on how the editors put this thing together. And then there were times where I thought they edited this episode better than that one, like the Gretchen thing. It was so out of left field. It was one of the biggest surprises because it didn't, there was no inkling that was going to happen, or there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and they're just learning how to edit it down to 42 minutes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think I think the fascination is still there because it really resonated and changed TV as we know it. I mean, it's just, what can I say? The show is nobody expected it to become what it was. And that season was still the highest rated season of all time.
It's nuts. I remember my little sister came home one day from high school and I can't remember, like her senior year in high school or something. She's like, look, you're in my psychology book.
Ah!
And it was like us, I think it was like right when we arrived, getting off the bamboo raft or something. And it was, talking about, using Survivor as like a psychological teaching tool to high school kids now. And
wow.
Super random, but I take improv classes here in Chicago. And tonight I'm seeing an improv show with a bunch of my friends. And they picked it. I did not. It is improvised Survivor.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
On a stage doing Survivor.
Oh
I'm like,
gosh,
this show has been such like a cultural phenomenon and has inched and embedded its ways into so many different aspects of life.
Yeah.
No, you're right. That's really funny because I remember when I first moved to Mexico and, there was somebody was, there from America, and they had made a reference to like, something about Toto, or like, we're not in Kansas anymore. And, I got it. And the like 3 other American people got it. But, the Mexican people we were hanging out with, they were like,
what are you talking about?
Huh? And just kind of thinking about like, oh yeah, of course, Wizard of Oz, like everybody, and you can throw something out there like that and somebody will know. And so I catch these weird little like Survivor references like in life. And it's like, oh yeah. And that it's an odd part of culture. And I think one time I went to a Halloween party and I had a mask on. I was a bride of Frankenstein, and somebody showed up to the party as me. And it was awesome because like there was not like, I just went with a friend of a friend of a friend to some, Halloween party. And
they had no idea you were going to be there.
and my friends were like, you have to go over and tell them. I was like, no, I don't want to.
You didn't? You got to like,
I did at the end, but I just enjoyed it like the whole time. Like it was awesome. And,
what was the reaction?
Okay. Oh, they were super. And the best part was it was a guy. Yeah. It was a dude that was dressed up as me. And he was super nice. And, we took pictures and it was fun. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Like my dad always jokes. He's like, well, you've made it when somebody dresses up as you as for Halloween.
Are you responsible for saying, I'm not here to make friends?
Yes. I knew you were going to ask that. Yes. Unfortunately. Yes. I know.
You were the first person.
Yes. Apparently, according to whoever judges these things, I was the first person to say that. And that will follow me to my grave
it's a
because
societal norm now.
It is, but it's so like, that is so not like that was my pre-Gretchen vote off. That was where I'm like,
right,
screw everybody. I'm going to do this thing. And I was like, yeah, no, not. No.
I do want to ask, just from my fan perspective, you've mentioned Jervis and Keith, and who was one of your like favorite people to play with, like out of your 2 seasons, who did you have the most fun with?
Well, Jervis, number one. And then, second time around, Kimmy, Kimmy's awesome. She's a sweetheart. Jeff Varner's a really good guy too. I know he's had some,
Right.
stuff. I don't keep up with all of that, but he's a good guy. We're friends, but we didn't really play together that much.
Right.
On the
newer
second
seasons, it's all the switches and
So we actually didn't get that much time, but Kimmy and I spent a lot of time together, and she's a girl. You would love her. Like, she is a very interesting and just a solid lady.
Mom, maybe we need to do season 2 and talk to
Kimmy.
Well,
Let's try to figure out what to do, because we can't talk about TV and film, but
Kimmy is great. I loved her in Africa.
Awesome. Kimmy's great. Jervis is great. Terry Dietz is awesome. We still stay in touch and check in on Danny and everything. And my son Rio, he's like obsessed with, he wants to be a Navy pilot currently at the moment. So we tap into, I'm like, well, Terry, he was Top Gun, so we Terry will send videos of him flying to Rio. But honestly, I really was close with a production more than anything. I'm still really good friends with a lot of the production people, because like you said, I mean, let me put it to you this way, season 1, there was 3 people. So we had our camp, each team had their camp, and we had a camera, a producer, a sound with us. And that's it.
All the time.
And they would be there for 3 days, and then they had their tents, like a little further away from our camp, but they stayed with us for 3 days, and then they would swap out, and we would get a producer, a sound, a camera for 3 days. And it would just be those 2 teams, and they would switch every 3 days. And then when you would go to the games, there would be a lot more people, but second time around, there was 14 people with a boom mic hanging over me, and like, you're sitting in the rain, and I just like, I kind of feel bad for you guys, because like, this is boring. Like, we're not doing anything, and you all are having to stand here. Like,
the production is so different.
Did it feel different that second time? Like, you're walking into, like it was a little independent film, and now you're doing this huge, big blockbuster. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was so different. And, things like, it was like, and even the players, they were like, so did you really have to, like, you guys had to like walk places? Like, did you really have to walk to tribal council? I was like, well, yeah. Like, what did you do? Oh no, they take you on a boat. Like, they drive you to the others.
I didn't know.
I
thought
so it's not as okay. So I thought that, there's, because this is me, because guys, I don't know, but you did get to show up with some rice, and you had some things that you could grab off the ship, but then in subsequent seasons, did they get less, or did they?
Oh gosh, there's so much food. There's so much food now. Like, we literally had fruit rotting the second time around. There's so much food. And that was the thing the first time around. So because Borneo was so dangerous and gnarly, and like, you couldn't collect rainwater, and the island where they put us, because the canopy is so huge that nothing grows, so it's not like you can go harvest a tomato or pick a fruit. They had to actually give us something, because we're going to starve to death. And so they gave us rice the first time around, and Jeff said it was unlimited supply of rice. So finally, by the time we made fire day 3, we were just like rice, like all day long, 24 hours rice, because it's never going to stop. They're going to keep giving us rice. And after we had gone through, I think it was 10-pound bag of rice, and we had gone through at least half in the first few days, Jeff came and he said, well, that's all you get. Yeah. We were like, no. You said it was unlimited. And he was like, no, I didn't. Never said that. And we were all, it wasn't just me. Everyone. I didn't imagine it. Oh yeah. We were like, no, you said it wasn't limited. And he was like, well, no, well, that's all you get. Like, whether, he never copped to saying it or not. We all knew he said, he was like, that's it. So that's all we had.
What?
So then we had to go on super, super extreme ration. And, it was bad. Like it got to a point where, and I think it said in the tabloid somewhere, like, I led the strike. I led the charge of the players that, we refuse to play unless they give us food, which we did. And maybe I did, I probably did. I don't remember, but, we did, it got to the point where we're like, we physically can't go climb up this wall and do the thing.
Right.
Like we were bad off. And that was, Mark Burnett pulled us aside at the end. He was like, okay, so if we do this again, like, let's survey, what should we do differently? We were like, you've got to give these people more food. Like there has to be more food. So there was a lot of food the second time around for sure.
It's so interesting because we've been rewatching the whole first season, and I said, it looks like they're given so much more food because you guys had cans of things and all that stuff. And in the later seasons, they don't show any cans of food or anything like that. Like they make it seem like they have way less.
Well, so the cans, that was a reward that we won. I think that was the supply drop. And there was cans of dog food that washed up on the beach. Yeah. and we ate it, and that was awful. But there was a supply drop where we got hammocks and some toilet paper and like spices and a couple of cans of food. But other than that, our reward challenges the first time around was like, we got the spear and the mask and snorkel, or like a letter from home. But and there started to be towards the end of the first season, because again, we told we were like, we gotta have more food. More. Yeah. So then they were like, okay, we have to, because I think it was the first one I won was the beer in the bar with Jeff. And I was like, you got to give me food, dude. I'm not showing up just for Budweiser. Like you have to give me something more.
I heard on I just happened to listen to Jeff's podcast this last week, knowing that we were going to talk to you. And he told the story about how that episode was because Budweiser is doing product placement. The representatives were there. Here's the episode. The reward is going to be one beer. And he said, we found out from everyone that they were like, this is not a good enough reward. We're not interested in one beer. No. And they had to think on their feet really quick. And they came up with letting you watch 5 minutes, and they had to create that bar.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And blindfold you. And I thought,
brought out that plate of like pasta. And
it was like macaroni with red sauce.
Yeah.
And well, it's funny because the locals were like, what the hell are these people doing? They just thought we were nuts. And so that bar was actually production, that was their base camp. Yeah. And so they blindfolded me, they boated me around in circles while they were still like building this bar. And then we get there and I'm like, oh yeah, there's some random bar.
Just a bar.
We're in the middle of nowhere.
So you were kind of
all the locals show up there. Yeah. I mean, I knew it was, fabricated, but even still, he was like, oh yeah. And I'm like, I don't even like Bud. I was like, I don't even
just one beer is not
right. Like one beer, and like I get to watch the episode in a bar. Like, no,
a case of beer. Come on,
or something, I did. I was like, can I bring a case back to camp? And they were like, no. Like there was no sharing of anything. And but like going back to when you were talking about editing, so seeing that first episode, it was like, maybe like that movie Spaceballs or whatever, where he's like, wait, it's happening. It's right now. No, that's us. Like right now, and just even looking at the opening credits. And I think it was Dirk who really stood out to me, because seeing him on the opening credits and then seeing him, that day, I was like,
he lost so much weight, right?
Oh, he and Jervis, being, tall and bigger, it really showed on them, and they had a really hard time, with no food. And, that was kind of a big moment, for Jervis when, it was the barbecue challenge. We had to like go into the spider web. And it was funny because I'm still really good friends with, the guy who is in charge of all the games. And just hearing them talk about figuring it out, and just again, having a lot of respect for production, because obviously everything you see, there's somebody 10 feet ahead of you running, filming it. And I saw a dude fall off a cliff, trying to get the shot in the jungle. And I mean, he was fine, but like they worked so hard.
Yeah.
They really worked so hard. And, them, it was all like rope and they had to tie up this giant spider web. Well, it's so tropical. I mean, I think he said the course broke like 3 times before we even got to do it, because it would just break, like the moisture in the air, the rope would just fall apart. And he was like, I was just hoping that it didn't break when we actually made it to the challenge, because they would have to set it up and practice and see if it really worked. But that was one of those times where Jeff had said, okay, you got to go here and get the thing and get the thing and get the thing. And then you have to get back to the middle before you can win. And I totally wasn't listening. It was like 3rd grade, like listen to all the instructions before you take action. And I did not. I was like, I'm going here. I was planning my route and I was done. I was done like a minute and 30 seconds before anybody else, but I wasn't listening to the part where I had to get to the middle before I won. And Colleen, she didn't even have all of her things. Somebody else had one of her things. No, that was one. No, it was this giant rope spider web
the ropes
thing.
Course.
Oh, earlier on.
Yeah. Okay. And we had to run, and each person had like a number or a color or something. Yeah. And we had like a little fanny pack, and we had to go to each station and get your color and put it in your fanny pack. But it was like, I don't know, 6 feet up off the ground. If you fell, you had to start over. And if you grabbed somebody else's, it counted against you. And if they grabbed yours. And so, I was plotting this whole thing. Well, Colleen, somebody had already grabbed hers. So technically she was done by default. And I had already had mine. And I was standing there yelling at Jeff going, I'm done. And he's like, well, you got to get to the middle. And Colleen was closer to the middle. So anyway, so she won. Right. And it was like, I totally could have won. I should have won. But I didn't, because I wasn't listening and I didn't pay attention, and it was a barbecue. And I think that was the first like big food reward that we got, because I think, there was like the random canned supply drop that was dog food. And Jervis, like he took that one hard. He was really upset, and Colleen invited Jenna. And so they were going to go eat, fried chicken and all this stuff. And he was like, he was mad. He
needed it probably.
He needed it, and he was hangry. But I remember it was like, okay, we have to walk back to camp because it's getting dark and a storm's coming. And he sat on a log on the beach and was like, no, like he was ready to give up. He was like, I'm not doing this. I can't do it. And he was also worried about like kind of making a fool of himself on TV. That was part of it. He was like, I look like an idiot and I was like, hey, if anybody looks like an idiot, it's me. Like I'm standing there done and I don't even know the rules. And, he was like, well, I'm not going. And I was like, well, I'm not going either. Like, we're both going to sit here and I guess we'll sit here all night, because I'm not leaving this beach without you, and you need to just get over it and let's go. Like, you can have my rice. I was like, I'll give you my rice tonight. And I did, because he needed it. And but yeah, I just remember that being the barbecue. He took the barbecue really hard.
It seems like you two really created a good bond and friendship there. The last episode, what he said, and they don't show these behind the scene things, where you're sitting on the log with him, and that's just really sweet that you can build like such a genuine relationship in a game that is really about deception.
Yeah, it is. And you never know if you're going to get that or not. Like I said, it's like you pluck the high school clique and in the woods, and maybe there's somebody you jive with, maybe not, you hope so. But yeah, he ended up being a really, and I always know when his son's birthday is, because he was born while we were there, and we had cigars, which were awful. And I puked my brains out later.
Oh, wow.
But, my God, cigar. Yeah.
Talking about the finale just at the end, when, just for my own personal, because when I saw Sue come up to you and the whole big thing, everyone saw that you didn't shake her hand. You're like, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. And then in the reunion, I was wondering, well, first I was two things. First, I was wondering what the rest of the evening was like after you guys knew what was going on. Did you immediately get to eat food? And then two, at the reunion, you guys said you were okay with each other. And is that still true? So two things.
Okay. So when like it happened on Borneo, when I found out I lost on Borneo, while it's going on, I'm looking out at production because everybody's there and it's the final moments and like everyone's holding hands and it's this big tense moment. And when I lost, it was like everybody came over to me and just people were crying. I mean, I was surrounded by support and by love, and it was like Sue was over there in the corner, Sue and Rich. Nobody gave a crap. Like it sucked. It was heartbreaking, but the support and the love that I did receive from my, fellow castaways that were, in my corner, but production was just, they were like, okay, come on, like, that's okay. And hugged and just all the things, all the words of encouragement. And they, got me to a shower and got me a change of clothes. And then there was like a little wrap party. But I was like, I don't feel like partying. I don't feel like eating. I don't feel like doing anything, but, you show up and you kind of smile and you hang out, but just everybody, but the big thing is everybody kept bringing me Guinness, because that's my favorite beer. And they actually make Guinness in Malaysia and it's really strong. So people just kept bringing me beers all night long and glasses of water. Beers and glasses of water was the thing. And so, that was the best they could do. But and then going back to the finale in Hollywood and all that. And I don't know if they showed this, but when we came out, because we had to watch it, backstage or the green room and whatever. And Gretchen was really awesome because, I'm sitting on the couch and I watch that final moment because they're filming us watch that final moment. Otherwise, I was just up running around like I can't look at it. And Gretchen was either like sitting right next to me or behind me, just, arms around me and everything and rubbing my back. And, it happened and everybody was just around me. And again, Sue was just like over in the corner by herself. Nobody wanted to talk to her. But when we all walked out, they bring the final four out and she came out and the whole audience booed her. Like,
They didn't
if
show that.
people could have thrown
they don't show that at
tomatoes,
all.
they would have. Oh, it happened. And not a single person cheered. She was booed bad. And
Has she talked about this ever? Does she ever talk about like?
I don't know.
I
don't know. And when I came out, everybody cheered. So that was awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. And like I said, it was just like, she made a fool of herself and that's her deal, not mine. And, I held my head up high and I was like, I'm not like inviting her over for Thanksgiving, but I forgive her. She is who she is and she has to be who she is for the rest of her life. And I don't have to ever think about her ever again. Yeah. But she has since, she sent me gifts and presents and letters and birthday cards and apology stuff. And I think I saw her at like the 10-year, whatever the big thing was. And she cried her eyes out again and hugged and like, oh, please forgive me. I'm like, Sue, I forgave you a long time ago, It
only hurts yourself to hold animosity like that.
Oh gosh. Yeah. That's what I said. I was like, that's your deal, not mine. And
forgive yourself.
Yeah. That's why I told her, I was like, you need to forgive yourself. Yeah. Be a better person. Maybe don't do that again, or, treat people better, or don't be so angry. But yeah, it's just funny, people still, every once in a while, like I'll be at a restaurant or something and, server will come over and give me a glass of water. And I'm like, I didn't, and then they'll be like, oh, it's from that table over there.
Glass of water.
Because that's what she said. She said she would never give me a glass of water if I was, dying of thirst. And so I'll just every once in a while get a glass of water, and that's really sweet. So I love that.
I love it. And on the Grand Canyon, you pump your water to clean
Yes. Yes.
Can't even do that. Listen, we talked about doing like 30 minutes to an hour, and I know that we're over
Oh
that.
gosh, I didn't even notice
But,
it.
well, thank you for saying. But I have
Yeah.
a couple voicemails that I asked the fans for some voicemails, but
Okay.
I have a couple, and one might be you already answered it, but one of them is from a river guide friend of ours, and in fact, you guys may have worked on this at the same company. But the first one is we just have three, so I'll
Sure,
play
no
it.
worries.
I did a 25-day trip on the Grand Canyon for the month of January, roughly 20 years ago. And we had so many meals of frozen falafel and bagels. And that was pretty much all there was to eat for most breakfasts and lunches. It took me roughly 7 years before I was ready to eat bagels, and only had falafel for the first time 1 month ago. So I'm curious, how long did it take you before you wanted to eat rice again?
That's funny. I knew that question was coming. Rice. Yeah, it took me I still can't really eat just
Really?
like a bowl of white rice. I eat rice. I eat brown rice. I eat wild rice, but just straight up plain white rice. Not my favorite, but I can eat it. But it's funny that, not very long after I came home from the show, I was visiting family, and we had gone out to, like the Japanese steakhouse, and they're cooking. And we were waiting for them to start cooking. And I was so hungry. I had just been traveling, just got off the plane, and I was there with my sisters. And, we're at the corner, and there's other people on the table. And I was just super hungry. And they had brought out our
A bowl of white rice.
bowl of white rice, and I was eating it because I was so hungry, and I'm like eating it, and my sister's like elbowing me, and she's like, "Don't look, but those people are staring at you at the other end." And you can hear when the lady was saying to her husband, she's like, "Look, see, she's still eating rice. I told that's her, and she's eating rice."
You can't go anywhere without rice and water.
I know.
Water bowl of rice.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that was Maggie. This one's
funny.
from Sarah. You may have already answered, but I don't know. There we go.
Okay.
Hi, Kelly. I'm so excited that you are doing this podcast. I am a huge fan of Survivor, and I was wondering if you still talk to people from season 1.
Kind of answer that a bit.
Just Jervis.
Yeah.
He answered that one, but I didn't know if there's possibly more. But you would have been talking to Rudy, who passed.
Yes, I would have been talking to Rudy. We would see each other and keep tabs, Christmas and holidays and things like that. So yeah, that's true.
Okay, so I have one more, and I just love this. Maggie sent a second one because I just thought this was a great way to end the podcast, because I think it really sums up. It was a great question. So here you go.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Mindy. Hi, CG. My name's Maggie. And my question is, so the very first Survivor was 23 years ago, and so much has changed in the game since 2000. What has stayed with you the longest? And part of that is also, what has been your greatest lesson from this experience? How did it change you? And I'm so curious, how long did it take to process everything you had gone through? Because you were like 23 or something when you did this show. And so now that you are not 23 anymore, how have you processed all of what happened to you?
A lot of questions in one.
A lot of questions. Well, and we talked about it a bit, but I guess I'm still processing would be part of the answer to that. I'm still, learning from that and what's the takeaway. But of all the things and all the elements and the people and the hardships and whatnot, I always kind of have this image. And when I was little, I loved the movie Never Ending Story. Have you seen that? I mean, it's goofy and all that, but it was so cool when I was little, and it was kind of new, like technology, I guess, back then, and all the special effects. But I just remember Atreyu, the warrior, and he has to go through all the challenges, and he goes through this swamp, sadness swamp. And then, he has to like be pure of heart to go through the laser statues. And of course, I'm out there and I have nothing but time on my hands. So I'm like equating this to that. And, oh yeah, there's, like you were saying, some days it's a 1 and some days there's a 10 and some days you're the hero and some days not so much. And so I felt like, I went through the swamp sadness and the lasers and the this and that, but I always remember his final challenge was, and I just remember it being cold. I don't know if he had to go through snow or whatever, but I just remember it being white and cold, and he goes through, and then he gets to the thing, and the big challenge is it's a giant mirror. And that's his final challenge, is this big mirror, and he has to look at himself in the mirror. And to me, that was the biggest takeaway, is, can I look myself in the eye and be proud of who I am and what I did? And it's not about surviving the elements or the people or TV or production. It was really about surviving myself.
Right. You said that at one point. You said, I'm doing this on my own. And actually, that's so powerful. That's such an amazing lesson. Yes, our lives are defined by our connections and our relationships, but most problems can be solved by working on ourselves, surviving the best way we can, and sticking to that moral code. And those ethics. That's important. At
the end of the day, you are all you have. So if you can't, live with yourself, then
exactly. And it does, because that's when you think about it, people are like, oh, this is me in the game and I'm really great in real life. And it's like, well, that's just 39 days of your life. But think how much going back to that ripple effect, like I had no idea that this random thing that my mom made me do that I never thought would ever be on TV. Oh, guess what? It's like you get ready to go to your house and you're like, oh, I'm just running to the store. I'm going to put my hair up in a bun. And, it turns out, you being obviously in Hollywood a lot, like you never know what's going to happen. And you kind of want to put your best foot forward. Right. So, thinking about it like that, like no one planned for it to be what it was. And turns out it was what it was. And especially now being a mom, and he's 9, he's never seen it, but he's kind of starting to kind of get what it is and what it was and like what I did. And, kids at school, or especially like parents are like, oh my gosh, like your mom, Yeah. And so I'm sure we'll have more conversations about it as he gets older. But now I'm like, well, think about what if I had been different? What if I hadn't been me? Or what if I had played really mean and dirty? Is that something I want to go through the rest of my life having to defend or having to live with, or having now my son? This affects his life too now. And hopefully he can be proud of who I am now and what I'm doing now, but also proud of what I did then.
Right. Even those who have actually did, maybe betray themselves or make some questionable choices during this process. Even those people, I would offer that you're still just a flawed human being. All we can do is learn and try to be better in the future, and learn from our experiences, because I think mistakes and such are just as important as our successes. And that's what really makes us. And, but on that,
absolutely.
What would you
and no judgment on them either, for, and I want to, I want to be clear on that. Like, no harsh talk or no bad judgment on anybody who plays the game however they feel that they need to, because and I don't know who everybody is and whatnot, but I've met people at certain other things and like, oh, they're fantastic people. And then, oh, well, so they were so mean on the thing. And I'm like, well, they were really nice just now when I met them, and they have kids. And, I think Cass, who I was on Cambodia with, like she had a horrible reputation for
They made her out to be awful.
Well, they made her out to be awful on Cambodia from what I heard, but I guess whatever she had played before,
her
they made her out.
Season, they made her kind of awful as well.
Yeah, but she was a really nice lady and a mom, and she would talk about her kids a lot, and I thought she was a really great lady.
It shows the characters they make out of people in this show.
Totally. But, did she do some pretty kind of heinous things while we were there? Yeah, she did. I'll admit that too. And that's where I'm like, well, you can't make something out of nothing. They can't make you to be this hideous, awful human if you're really like, Snow White all the time. Like, that's just not possible.
Right. Right.
So there's some truth in there somewhere, right? I think.
Well, then I guess my last question would be, what would you tell your younger self if you could talk to her? Your 22-year-old self.
That's a great question. And that's something, I've asked myself, like, what would I do different? And what would I say? And, not a damn thing.
You did great, girl. You did it.
Thank you. I think I had to, like you said, and I love that you made that point, because I'm a big believer in, like, if you have to have the conflict to know what you have to know what you don't want to know what you do. And if you're never put in those situations, and if you never, have that conflict, you can never be better. You can never be better. You can never want better. You can never know the other side of the coin. And I had to go through all of that to end up where I was there and to be where I was now. So I don't think I would do anything any differently. I think I would just be, tell myself, like, you're going to be okay. You don't know this. You don't know it's going to be okay, but it's going to be okay. And you're going to be okay.
Yeah. You got this, man. You got this. Wow.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. This many years later, it's amazing. Hey, before we go, Adam, I just wanted to introduce you to my husband, because you guys are the same age. I mean, he learned on the American River, I think.
That's where I did my guide school. Yeah.
And that's where he did his.
Yep.
Yeah. And my friend Maggie that left her message. So she just auditioned for Survivor, in fact.
Oh, nice.
And did she actually? I didn't know that.
Yeah. She worked on Whitewater.
Hey, I bought him that shirt.
She worked at Whitewater Voyages with her sister.
That's where I worked.
And she was like, I think they worked together.
Her sister, what's her sister's name?
Hi.
Here, hold on.
Hi, Adam.
Her name is
nice
Sonia.
to meet you.
There you
Sonia. I know a Sonia that worked with Whitewater Voyages. She actually lives, because I live in Truckee, and she was actually my kid's PE teacher.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I don't know if her sister
Hodges.
Oh, Hodges.
Sonia's married now to Dan Martin, so she's probably Sonia Martin.
Yep. And she's one of my neighbors.
Oh, wow.
That's so funny.
Yeah. She was my son's PE teacher at Sierra Expeditionary Learning School in Truckee. Yeah. Yeah, I know them. I know her and Dan. Totally. We didn't work. So she worked on the Kern a bit too. I think she had quit working there like the year before I arrived, but oh my gosh. Yep, totally. Well, it's nice to meet you.
This is Adam.
Very nice to meet you. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
So yeah, you were on the road for quite a bit.
That's where I spent most of my guiding career. Yeah, I went to college at UC Davis, got my feet wet as a river guide on the South Fork of the American.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the American. She said she did guide school there.
Yep, same for me.
Yep. I did my guide school with Voyages there in '99, and worked mostly on the Kern, but worked, pretty much all California rivers. I actually I do a trip with, my friend has a foundation in San Francisco called Me Water, where they take, different groups, at-risk youth and different kids with, different levels of challenges and surfing. But just the last 3 years, we've started doing rafting. So we do 2 days on the South Fork. So I just did that a couple of weekends ago. So yeah, good old South Fork. It's
fun.
Well,
Yeah, fun.
Adam actually teaches at a private boarding school, and they take kids to the Rogue, and they just went to the Kern. So
Nice.
you guys, and we're talking about getting CG to go, and we'll have to when CG moves
Go
back
to the Kern at some point.
We'll have to. Are you still going? Do you still do the Kern?
Yeah. Actually, we went for my birthday in June because our kids didn't get out of school till gosh, when did Rio get? Oh, June 23rd. They didn't get out of school till the 23rd, so we left on the. Yeah, we had so many snow days, but yeah, we went for a week at the end of June. But I mean, you'll get this. Well, it was like at 5,700, but I just thought like, like we'll just show up and there'll be like high water, like there'll be tons of people, and there was like nobody. No, I mean, there was like Sierra South and Voyages were doing like the lickety runs. And that was it. Like nobody was boating. There was like hardly anybody in town, and I couldn't find anybody to do shuttle. So I was kind of surprised, but it was pretty high. So we just did a bunch of powerhouses because I didn't, I couldn't really do anything else with Rio. But it was fun. I mean, it was great just to be there and whatnot. We went up to Brush Creek because I was trying to see if he's learning to kayak. So, I thought maybe we could do a little Brush Creek section, but it was way too high, but it was cool because he had never been, to the Kern and to go see it and everything. But
yeah.
I mean, I haven't been since I was 2 years younger than Rio. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping we're hoping to do a road trip before school starts. So I hope we can.
I loved it. I did the rapid that you get out of the boat and you swim in.
Blossom Bar?
Lower Black Bar.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice.
I saw her little head going by and I was like, what? And it was, it was kind of not a private trip. It was kind of we chartered the whole trip and we had like 7-year-olds and they were all doing this. And I was like, it was a little bit pushing the age limit. It was a little too young in my mind.
I loved it. So
fun. Well, yeah, I would love to. That would be great.
It would be lovely to see you in person and do something like that and be part of that. So
that would be great. Well, yeah, let me know. Keep in touch. And if you guys ever, make it up to the American, are you in LA?
We're in Ventura, actually.
Oh, you're in Ventura. Okay. Yeah. We're, we might come back down in August for another Kern. And then if you're ever up, we're in Truckee. So give a shout if you're ever up and we can meet on the American.
That would be amazing.
Or whatever.
That'd be really fun. We've been talking about it.
CG I mean, he's getting to the American is quite easy. Just one little.
Done the American.
Fine with me.
Yeah, no. Well,
when I move back, I'm not going to have a job, so I'm going to have lots of free time.
Well, there you go. You should be a river guide. No.
Rock star, fireman, river guide.
Right. There you go.
Well, Kelly, thank you.
Nice to meet you, Kelly.
It was really nice to meet you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. This has been so much fun.
Yes.
Thank you. My pleasure. I really appreciate you inviting me. And it was so nice to meet you both. Very lovely. And I hope we get to, I hope we get to see you in person and talk more.
I mean, I think there's something, one of the things that's really important. Did you say this? That, gosh, I do so much, preparation for this, but one of the most important things in life is having experiences. And I think that's one of the things that CG got to do one trip, but she hasn't had as many. And now that she's a little bit older, CG, I think it would be amazing if you ever get the chance to do the Grand Canyon, or, I mean, obviously the Kern, you can do day trips or you can spend the night out there. And Cindy Miggins, Cindy, she has a house out there. So we have, cool. I think there's something so pure about river rafting, because especially if you're on the Rogue and there's no electronics or anything, there's no phone service or anything. All you can do is do something collectively as you get down the river, and then you sit around the campfire and you sing songs, and it changed my life. It really did. After doing a show in Hollywood, and I remember going on this trip going, I don't want to be here. Gosh, it's the end of the summer. And we had another strike coming up. It was 2007. And all of a sudden on the first day, I was like, I'm in paradise. Like people do this for a living, and I became obsessed. And then unfortunately I got a little more intimidated when things got a little dangerous a couple times. But to this day, it's still it's just an amazing group of people who do what they do for a living, and they do it for fun at the same time. Any chance they get, they go off and do these trips. So
yeah. And now, it's great to do it as a family. Like now, I mean, I'm not, I haven't done class 5 in a long time because I have my son, and, and I haven't kayaked in a long time because he hasn't been ready. So now that he's finally kayaking, like I just finally started kayaking again. And I'm like, I don't even know if I know how to roll. Like I'll probably swim if I get flipped over, but now, being able to share that with him, but I'll just throw it out there. If hopefully both of you, if you have any interest in coming to India with us next year,
CG,
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I would do that in an instant.
Yeah. Well, I'll send you more info, but it would be great. It would be great to have you both, or, would love to have you come along. It would be awesome.
Wow. That's amazing.
Wow. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Yeah.
She spent her college years during pandemic.
I've been aching for travel anywhere. So, just, getting the chance to do what you're doing in India, I think doing that anywhere would be such a great experience. And wow, actually, I might take you up on that.
All right.
And
where again is it? Are you doing this?
So we start off in Rishikesh. So we fly Delhi to Rishikesh. We spend 2 days in Rishikesh, just getting acclimatized, and kind of do a little tour in Rishikesh. And then from there, we drive into, it's the southeastern part of the Himalaya. I have to keep saying the word tamale because that's what the locals kept telling me. They don't call it the Himalayas. They call it the Himalaya, like tamale. So we have to keep tamale. It's called the Kardanath, part of the national forest there. So we start off there and we hike. We do 3 days of trekking. So we go little by little by little, and then we camp along the way. First night is like actual tent camping, but they have a lovely campsite. And then the second 2 nights it's like your own little yurt with like a bathroom and everything. And we hike from there. And then the third day we summit, it's called Chandrashila Peak. And Chopta is the mountain range, and that's at 12,500 feet.
Wow.
But we work our way up, but we go up there, and we beautiful temple, and we summit, and then we come back down. And then from there we go to the upper Ganges, which they call the Ganga. And then we raft 3 days down the Ganga and raft and camp. And it's like class 3 plus rapid, like nothing major, but really fun. It's more scenery and side hikes and waterfalls and stuff than, actual. I think that, the last day is when we have like the 2 biggest rapids, but I had never been to India before. And this was something we had been working on pre-COVID. And then that, stalled, and actually worked better because Rio was a little bit older to go. I mean, I would have brought him anyway, but he handled it really well. But I just, in my head, you think of the Ganges River and you're kind of like, ooh, it's a little, but the upper is gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's clean. It's clear. You can swim in it, so then we do 2 days at an Ayurveda retreat spa on the back end.
There you go.
Spa treatments and lovely food, and
you can bring a rain,
all of that.
What is it called? A sun shower, CG? Is it called sun
shower? If I'm doing this, I'm going all in. I don't need one of those little bag showers. I showered in the creek on the Rogue.
Yeah, we you wash in the river, and then on the hikes, the first night is the only night you don't have like water or like that
sounds like an amazing trip.
The first night.
As long as there's no nonstop storm where my fingers are gonna prune and
and the food was amazing. Like I thought that would be an issue with Rio. I thought I was going to have to bring like peanut butter and jelly the whole time, but he's pretty adventurous with this food. But they, and this is where I was like, man, you kind of have it made as a guide, like just in terms of like the work that you have to do, because when I worked as a commercial guide, like, you guide the raft and then you do kitchen and then you do camp and then you're doing dishes and everything. And so there, the way they have it, like the guide is the guide, like you're the guide, you're talking with the clients and you're leading the track and guiding the raft. And then there's a kitchen crew that's just the kitchen crew, and they just make the food. And we had the most lovely, it was actually this Nepalese man and his son that did our food. And it was so good.
Wow.
It was like camp food times a million. It was delicious.
That sounds amazing. As you described it, I wasn't quite picturing it. So thank you for taking the time to describe it. That's like,
yeah. And then
an adventure.
Yeah. And then my friend, we're going to be, so we're doing that trip and then we're going to be doing the guide school on the back end, but she's an Ayurveda doctor. So she does like a little seminar at night. And then I teach a yoga class every morning. So we have our daily yoga and then we do our activity. And then, we have Ayurveda and yummy chai and food at the end of it.
That sounds amazing. And that sounds,
say no more. Say no more.
Awesome.
Yeah. CG, that's you've never taken any time off to travel. That sounds like an amazing thing. Kelly, this was beyond lovely. And I'm so glad you took the time to explore. Of course, we're here to celebrate something that was pretty significant in the world of television, but also just your story and your passions and your being a humanitarian and just everything you do. It's very inspiring. And I think, and people can learn and from your example. And I know I'm walking away more inspired to do more in the world. And
me too. I just, you watch people on TV, but you don't actually see who they are or get to know them. And so this conversation with you has been probably my favorite interview we've done on this podcast. So just thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Oh gosh, thank you so much again. I'm really honored that you invited me, and I'm really happy to get to know both of you. So thank you again.
Oh, wow,
I look forward to
serendipitous.
to more.
Yeah,
I'm sure. And if you're ever in town, Cheryl always has her little parties.
Gosh, Cheryl's parties.
Well, actually, I don't know if she's doing them so much anymore. But anyways. But yes, and Dave always has tickets to the Hollywood Bowl.
I know. I'm like, you. Every time I see you, are living there, man. That's so funny.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I can't keep you another moment, and I'm so grateful that this lasted this long because it was it's the highlight of my week. So much.
You.
Okay. Well,
okay.
I think. Hi, Lucy.
I know, I was like,
I really think that we're going to meet in person someday soon, and maybe it'll be India, or on the Kern soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. And just let me know when this it's when this comes out and everything. And
yes, I think it'll be in a couple months.
Few weeks.
I'm kind of
months.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm not sure exactly where we are. I think it'll be at least 3 weeks, maybe more. So in her schedule.
Don't ask me.
Well, good luck with your arm. I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope you get better soon.
It's just 2 weeks.
Go rafting.
So,
okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Okay, good. All right, 2 weeks. And then, if you guys are snow people, ski people, we're up there in the snow. So give a shout if you're ever up that way.
Another thing I haven't done since I was 6 years old, I think.
Yeah.
Ski? So. Do you ski or snowboard or both?
I think I skied.
It's funny. I've only skied twice in my life.
I don't remember.
Okay.
You could still learn, although they're
maybe give it a few months once I'm fully healed. But
yeah. Well,
I would love to do that too. So many adventures.
Okay. Awesome.
Oh,
well, thank you again.
Thank you
again,
Kelly.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.